It's Thursday, October 28th, and Joe Biden's agenda looks like it's going to shrink down to nothing. And that's a shame, because I remember back when Trump was trying to do certain things, they cost us a lot more money than this amount of money that Joe's talking. Joe is up against it because every Senate Republican is against this thing. They are holding strong, holding against Joe's agenda. And you have two senators from the Democrats who are not in favor of spending money, claiming it's too expensive. But let's take a look back. Let's take a look back and see what's happened. Let's compare Biden's social agenda. I assume most of you remember the tax cut, the 1.9 trillion tax cut that went mostly to the wealthy and to large corporations, with the myth that this was going to trickle down to the people, and the people were going to get more because of this tax cut, because the corporations would be generous. Well, they were generous. They bought their own stock back, and their stockholders made tons of money. But did any of that money get to the people? No. The middle class was virtually left out of it. And the poor got nothing. So here we are, we're fighting over this $1.5 trillion deal, but we gave away $1.9 trillion in a tax cut. And the Republicans, they should now be willing to repeal the tax cut in order to pay for the social package that we need, and for the infrastructure that we need, and for the climate that we need to get in shape. Right? There's no reason that this tax cut should remain in effect. But the Republicans won't vote for repeal. No Senate Republican is going to vote for repeal. They're standing firm and squeezing Joe's collusions. Is that what we want to be known as? A nation, a wealthy nation that won't spend its money? And what about the $2.1 trillion that 750 billionaires have raked in since the start of the pandemic? What about all that money, right? Are we going to get any of that money to pay for the infrastructure? You would think that they would be willing to fork over a few bucks. I know most of you probably haven't heard about Ron Wyden's proposal. Ron Wyden is the chair of the Senate Finance Committee. He's proposing this billionaire's income tax to be paid by the 750 billionaires in America. Now, this tax I can't necessarily agree with. This is a tax on your holdings. So if you had a stock that went up by 20%, they expect you to pay something on that 20%. I don't know if I'm in favor of that. I think that could stifle investing and things like that. But meanwhile, they're trying to do something to raise this money instead of just going out and getting rid of this heinous tax cut that we put into effect in the beginning of Trump's presidency. And then, in our budget, we're going to spend $8 trillion on military spending over the next 10 years. $8 trillion on military spending. And we can't spend $1.5 trillion on infrastructure and a couple of trillion on health care and things like that. Something's wrong. There's something wrong with this equation. There's something wrong with our view of the world, at least the government's view of the world, or part of the government's view. Yeah. So we gave the Department of Defense $726 billion for next year. Now, I'm not saying that we should not spend this money on our military, because if we're going to be the guardians of the world, of the planet, then we need to spend some of that money. But then, if we're going to spend that money, we've got to get it from somewhere. And the only place we can get it, really, is by putting that tax cut back to where it was. And you know, it's ridiculous, because those tax rates are phony. When you look at the tax, and I've said this hundreds of times, and it's worth repeating, nobody pays the tax as it's written, the tax rate as it's written. Well, not nobody. The poor people always pay it. But the wealthy always have some exemption, some way of avoiding tax avoidance. You know, we've got to get rid of the exemptions. I'll say that again and again and again till they put me in the ground, probably. And the waste. There's a tremendous amount of waste in the military budget. It includes 85 F-35 fighter planes that cost $1.5 trillion. Now the question is, do we need those F-35s? 85 of them? And they have problems. This is not a perfect plane. So we're spending money on a faulty plane. $1.5 trillion on faulty planes. Does that make any sense to you? Doesn't make any sense to me. So here's the bottom line. We're the richest country in the world. We can afford to pay for the infrastructure and the reconciliation. Easily pay. We're pissing away much more than that, as I have just explained to you. So I don't see why we can't pay for this thing without making such a big ruckus about it. Shows you which side of the table everybody's on. And I'm telling you, we should spend this money. We are the richest nation in the world. So that's all I have to say this morning. And I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.